Sometimes in life, it feels like everything is coming together. The important things, the precious things, the good things, they're all in one piece. The problem is that when life happens, we begin to see that the things that matter most to us are breaking apart. It's usually at this time in life when we begin to doubt, when we begin to wonder, does God see what's happening? Does He care? And in the middle of trying to gather up what's been broken, what we don't realize is that it's the very pieces that God uses, that somehow, even in the middle of all this breaking, He's gathering. He's collecting the pieces of the things that matter most to us, and even though it just looks like broken pieces, He has a plan. And that plan is to bring something of beauty from the pieces of our lives that feel beyond repair. And not just beauty. He brings value. He's adding something to the very places that feel the most damaged. This is because He is a master builder. He can remember the original design better than we can. He is detailed and compassionate. He's consistent and He's careful. Our only job in the process is to let Him and to trust what's on the other side is wholeness.
Well, good morning, everybody. Whoa, it's a rough crowd here in Chelan, Brewster. Brewster, welcome. Happy fall, October to you up there. Billy and you all, welcome. If you're online listening, thanks for tuning in wherever you're at in the world or in the state. Thanks for tuning in. If you've been here to Chelan or heard me up in Brewster or online, you may think, Kyle, you're not a very good big boy pastor, senior pastor. And we would all agree with that, all right? That's fine. But you know what I am or was? Still am. I'm the greatest youth pastor in the world. And I'm going to prove that right now. I youth pastored for years, like decades. A lot of them. They gave me my first little junior high youth group when I was 20 years old. 1982, I started youth pastoring, and I'm going to prove you, like, Kyle, why so? I'm going to prove it. We used to do this, all kinds of different activities at youth group. We here in the Valley, we had a middle school youth group called Mania and a high school youth group called Impact, losers, and many of you grew up there. I mean, a lot of you grew up there. So we would do these, like during February, we would do special events, and we do romantic impact and love mania, and then we do Christmas impact and Merry Mania. And so it was at one of these events where we were doing contests, and we always, in the high school group, we would always divide in freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. And so we'd play different Christmas games. And of course, this is one of the greatest ones. And so two people would come up from each class, and the senior class came up here, and there was two people, and the girl would eat two ho-hos. It's Christmas, and she would eat two ho-hos and whistle. And as soon as she got done whistling, her partner would, usually a boy, would drink a glass of eggnog and burp, and then whoever was fastest wins. Who's with me? That's good quality youth ministry right there. Now, There's kids throughout the world that know Jesus because they whistled ho-hos and they burped eggnog in Your Welcome, parents, all right? Now, on the certain occasion, this is where I get to be like a great youth pastor. On the certain occasion, this one gal, who was a senior at the time, let's call her Emily. And it's not Emily W., it's Emily L. And so let's call her Emily L. So Emily starts eating the ho-hos, and he got to win because we're keeping points and there's going to be prizes and everything. And her senior teammates out in the audience start yelling, just swallow, don't chew, just swallow. So she's just mowing these ho-hos, and she gets 2 ho-hos in her mouth, and she decides to follow the directions of the crowd. And she just swallows. And pretty soon, I'm looking at her. She hasn't turned color yet, and I say to her, Emily, are you choking? She's like, I said, Emily, I think you're choking. I said, Emily, and now she's like, insert greatest youth pastor ever. I step up, get behind her, I give her the Heimlich, ho-ho comes out. I saved her life, all right? You're welcome. They lost the game because she didn't swallow, she never whistled. She grunted when I Heimlicked her, but she never whistled, all right? Listen, you think, oh man, Kyle, that's severe. Yeah. I had to do that 3 or 4 times playing games in youth group over my career. You know, what? Yeah, that was before insurance. We could do whatever we want. Listen, can you imagine? I was so mad at Emily, and I've known her for a long, long time. I was so mad at her afterwards. I like, sweetie, you were choking. I asked you if you're choking. You said no. Oh, I was embarrassed. I said, you could have died. What would you have done if the greatest youth pastor in the world wasn't there to Heimlich you? She's like, can you imagine? You got stuff going on in your life. You know it's not doing you any good, but you continue to do it anyway. And even when someone comes along and bumps into you and say, hey, are you okay? Or you need something, you're like, no, I'm good. But inside, deep in your soul, not just a ho-ho, not just a youth group game. Deep in your soul, you're like choking. And you don't want anyone to know, but man, what are you going to do? How are you going to survive? I know that's a little heavy, but I think we all walked in here with something. We've been on this series called Built When Broken, and here's where I got it. And those of you who have been here before are going to be geniuses, because if you know the difference between these two, what these two people have in common. Oh, I see what I did. What do these 2 things have in common? Yeah, great. You keep yelling Super Bowl, and it's not the answer. Good job, middle schoolers. You keep yelling the same answer, and it's not going to change. Every week you've been yelling Super Bowl, and it doesn't have anything to do with the Super Bowl. That is Holton Ayers. Holton Ayers just got re-picked up by the Seahawks. He's actually, this week, is on the practice squad. He was with them all through preseason. They had to cut him. They brought him back. But when Holton Ayers was in college, one of his best buddies died. And in the middle of that brokenness, he thought, oh, wow, no. In the middle of that brokenness, he thought, what do I do? Who's there to help me? What if other people are going through this same thing? So he came up with this. And if you go to the website, Built When Broken, you'll see this. On there, it says, there are times in our lives when we feel like we are at the very bottom with nowhere to go. And some of you are feeling like that today, or just around the corner to feel like that. That is actually when God is closest to us and building us into who we are meant to be. That is built when broken. That maybe there's a benefit to pain and brokenness in our life. Maybe God can take and use it, and we come out better on the other side. The other picture was of this Japanese art called kintsugi. And it's this belief that when a vase or something is broken, you can put it back together with this gold lacquer. Or sometimes they break them on purpose because they believe when you put them back together, they're stronger and more beautiful. And that it's Japan's ancient art of celebrating broken pottery, but it's rooted in the philosophy of finding beauty in imperfections. Maybe, just allow this to just sit on your brain for just a second. Maybe there's good. Maybe there's better on the other side of the current pain or the pain you've been dragging along behind you for a long, long time. Maybe there's benefit to make your life better and you better when you realize it and acknowledge it. See, a couple things we've been saying every week is that pain is everywhere and it hurts. And that's so obvious, but it's so true. Whether it was way back in grade school when somebody said something to you and it hurt your feelings and you still remember it. Or it was just this weekend when something happened and you're like, just feel devastated. Maybe it's something from your family, maybe it's something in your marriage, maybe it's with your kids. But you're dragging that around and it hurts. The thing with pain is you can try to ignore it, but pain keeps us from living a free life. Pain holds us back. It gets its tentacles around us and it just holds us there. And we try and we want to think better. We want to be better. We want to live better. And we can't. Because pain is uncontrollable on our own. And people like me don't believe that. I love to be in control. We have this temporary mic. We ordered a new mic. This is temporary. But guess what? There's no mute button on it. I have no control. If I were to use the little restroom, pastor's room down the hall, I didn't. Because I didn't know if you could hear me or not. There's no mute. I have no control over my situation right here. All right? We think we control. Like something, I can do something. I can say something. Something can happen and I can make it go away. And you can't. So then pain creates hurts, habits, and hang-ups. And maybe you're young enough where you don't realize them or see them yet. Or maybe you're old enough and you think you've ignored them long enough, but people around you see them. But stuff that keeps us from living the life we want to live. So a couple weeks ago we said step one, and there were the steps in Celebrate Recovery. We'll talk about that in a sec. That's steps in AA. That's steps in AA. Step one is you got to get some help. You got to admit you're not God. That I can't do anything about my situation. You have to admit you got a problem. If you're choking on a ho-ho, you got to say, or this is the universal signal of I'm choking. You have to say, hey, help. The enemy of help, though, is denial. Like you need help, but you're like, no, I don't need help. I don't want anyone to know. It's such a long time ago. It's going to get better. The enemy of getting help is denial. You deny your pain, you deny your situation. There's no help involved. There's no help. No help. But the enemy of denial is pain. And we said last week, we don't change when we see the light. Most of the time, usually, we change when we feel the heat. My question, I know this is a little rough, but how much worse does your pain have to get till you stop and say, I need some help? Step two, we talked about last week, and that's open up. And that's recognize that only God has the power to heal you. That the pain that you're enduring, that God can step in, and there's a process that he can work, and you can be built even when broken. That step one is I need help. Step two is open up to maybe there's something outside of me that can help me. So step one is I can't. Step two is God can. And step three seems obvious, but that's what we're going to spend some time with is, okay, then I choose God. I'm stuck. I can't do anything about it. I believe there's a power bigger than me, God, the creator of the universe. All right, then I choose God. So step three, and this is why I want to convince you in the next 30 minutes, that the best thing you can do, wherever you are in your life, is to depend on Jesus. Listen, don't get all freaked out religiously and spiritually, all right? Just having a conversation. If you were stuck next to me on a plane and you're like, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm not going to say I'm a pastor. I'm going to say I'm a community organizer, because as soon as I say pastor, they want to change seats. You know what I'm saying? Oh, what kind of pastor are you? Oh, Christian. And now they're gone. They're gone. They're going to spend the rest of the time in the restroom and sit next to a pastor who's a Christian. So I'm just having a conversation about life and faith and your journey, wherever you're at. All right? I don't want to get all spiritual on you, but it is my job. And a little bit, maybe you're going to have to look at your soul just a tad. But to depend on Jesus means that you turn your life completely over to Jesus. That Jesus says in his biggest sermon when he was here on earth, and it's his largest and probably the most popular sermon, and he's listing all these things that are going to make you happy, make you content in life. And one of them, he says, listen, God blesses those. You'll be at peace. God blesses the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And when I was a kid or junior high and high school, and I read that verse, I thought, that's not me. I mean, look at me. Weak, maybe. Meek, never. Meek is like such a mamby-pansy thing. But meek is just the opposite. When Jesus used the word meek, the word he uses there, it means a controlled confidence in who God is and what he can do in your life. You're not like, oh, I can't do anything, I'm just a wimp. No, your confidence is put somewhere else. That God has the ability and you're confident that he can do what needs to be done in your life to get you moving forward. Imagine you're working at McDonald's, 17 years old. At first, it's a great job, right? Because you can eat all the fries that you want when no one's looking. You're 17, and after a while, because it's McDonald's, they make you manager, all right? Because now you're probably the oldest person on the shift running the place. And they give you the special manager visor, and you have your special manager apron, and it says manager Skippy. So you're Skippy, and you're in charge. Well, you show up, and you get the restaurant ready, and your crew starts coming in. Uh-oh. The quarter pounder guy who makes the quarter pounders, he's sick, he's not coming in. The fry gal got in an accident on the way, her car's told she can't make it. So it's you, Skippy, and two other people. Normally you have a crew of 4 or 5, and now there's just a rush. Maybe there's a conference in town, and everybody, who doesn't? Everybody loves McDonald's. And you go, and it's just chaos. And you as a manager, you're trying to make sure the orders are being taken and the fries are being made, and you're making quarter pounders, but they're only turning out as 8 pounders, and people are upset, and they're getting their food, and they're bringing it back, and people are starting to point their fist at you and square off with you, and a fire starts in the back of the kitchen, and now they can't cook anything, and the lines are going out the door, and the place is packed, and you're just, ah! And in walks Ray Kroc. Anyone? Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. He set up all the systems. He knows everything about how to run a perfect McDonald's. Ray Kroc comes walking in, and he says to Skippy, Skippy, you need any help? And Skippy's like, Mr. Kroc, man, if I could turn off my cell phone, I would. And second, here is my visor, and here is my apron. Mr. Kroc, you're the manager. You wear the visor. You wear the apron. Tell me what to do. I'm here for you. That's meekness. That you admit you can't do what you're trying to do. It's out of your control. But you turn it over. You give up control to someone who can. How ridiculous to say, no, Mr. Kroc, I got this. You're going down in flames. Mr. Kroc is available to help you. So, couple things. I just want to throw out some stuff. And so you think, this is just Oprah, Dr. Phil stuff, and it's just AA stuff. Man, it's the truth of the New Testament. It's like God invented the 12 steps. Way before there was 12 steps. Here we go. If you want to take off your visor, take off your apron, and turn your life over to Jesus, to give up control in a better way, turning your life over, giving up your managerial position, takes faith. Here's how we know that. The book of Hebrews, towards the end of the New Testament in the Bible, the book of Hebrews says, it is impossible to please God apart from faith. Why? Because anyone who wants to approach God, give him control, must believe both that he exists and that he cares enough to respond to those who seek him. What kind of faith you got? Is it belief or is it faith? Like there's a study that 96% of Americans, I don't necessarily buy it, believe that there's a God, some kind of God. But that doesn't mean that 96% of Americans have faith. You ever heard of this guy? This is the great Blundini. I wish he would have changed his name. He was, in the mid-1800s, he was the Evel Knievel of the world, both Europe and America and Canada. He was the first person to walk across Niagara Falls on a tightrope. He could tightrope across anything. He was really quite extraordinary. It's 1,100 feet across Niagara Falls. He was the first one to do it, and then he became the rage. Like, people would come all over the place. That's how he made a living. People would pay to watch him do it. And after a while, he got so good at it, one time he did it with his manager on his back. Yeah. He would do it handcuffed and his feet manacled. This is my favorite one. One time, he got out in the middle of the tightrope over Niagara Falls, and he made an omelet. He had a little stove with him. Oh, that's not true. It has to be true. Google says it is. He made an omelet. So one day, this is after a while, and I bet she's getting tired of the crowds. They're like, hey, the great Blundini, this guy's great. So he goes across like he usually does. There was a huge crowd, and he says, I'm the great Blundin. Do you think I can cross the Niagara Falls on a tightrope? Well, yeah, idiot. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think you could. Although I kind of wish you fall because that'd be more exciting. He crosses and comes back. He says, hey, I'm the great. Hey, who believes that I can push this wheelbarrow across the tightrope over Niagara Falls? Sure enough. He goes over there and goes back. And then these people have heard all about him. They've seen the omelet. They've seen him with his manager on his back. They've seen he did it blindfolded once. Then he says, who thinks I can push this wheelbarrow again across the tightrope? And like, yeah, you can. We just saw you do it. And this guy's down front like he thinks it's at Justin Bieber concert. He's like, yeah, Justin Blue Believer. Yay! Who thinks I can push this wheelbarrow across? And this guy's down front, yay! And the great Blundin says, hey, get in the wheelbarrow. That's the difference between belief and faith, isn't it? Yeah, Blundin, I believe you can do it. Well, prove it. Get in the wheelbarrow. Now, listen. You're like, Kyle, I've not been to church in a long time or ever. If you're telling me I got to get in a wheelbarrow with Jesus, I ain't doing it. That's too much. If you're telling me that I got to risk my life, listen, all I'm saying is there's a difference between thinking that there's a God and putting your life into the hands of God. There's a difference between belief about God and faith in God. And I would challenge you, not a fight, not an argument, to say, where are you? Do you just believe about God? And it's okay if that's where you are, because Jesus still loves you, and so do I. Is it just belief, or have you decided to move ahead? There's a bunch of roadblocks. Let me give you a bunch of them. There's a bunch of roadblocks to doing that. To move from believing to having faith, to putting your life in Jesus' hands. There's a bunch of roadblocks. Pride is one of them. What are people going to think? I'm going to be embarrassed. If I admit that I'm choking on the ho-ho, people are going to make fun of me. We did anyway. Arrogant people, not the ho-ho choker, arrogant people are on their way to ruin because they won't admit when they need help. Yeah, pride gets in the way. You want to be in charge. Guilt gets in the way. You've done stuff in the past, and you're stuck in a shame cycle. And you do it again, you feel bad. And in the process of feeling bad, this shame comes in, and then shame forces you to do that again, and you're just stuck. David says, and David was like one of God's favorite. God says, like, he's my man. David says, for troubles surround me. There are too many to count. My sins pile up so high, I can't see my way out. They outnumber the hairs on my head. I have lost all courage. His sin, his guilt was taking him under. Fear is a roadblock. To move from belief about God to faith depending on Jesus. Fear's a roadblock. We're scared to death that God's going to ask us to do something that we're afraid to do. And you're like, listen, I'm afraid that God just wants to control me and make me dress differently and make me, I can't do this, I can't do that, and I don't want to be controlled. And listen, man, really? You're controlled by what your friends think now. You're controlled by the addiction that you're hiding. You're controlled by fear. You're controlled by lust. Like, I don't want to be controlled. You're already controlled by all these things that don't mean well for you, that don't have your best interests at heart. God comes along and says, hey, I have an offer for you. I'm not going to dominate you, but if you're willing to take off your manager hat, I'm willing to take over. In the New Testament, Paul, the apostle, says this means that anyone who belongs to Jesus, who turns their life over to Jesus, has become a new person. All the old stuff is gone. New life has begun. And there's a process. Maybe worry gets in the way. Listen, real quick. I'm running out of time. The Christian life is a decision followed by a process. That you make a decision to turn your life over to Jesus, and then you start living that decision out day after day after day. It's a process of learning more, growing, learning, getting better, doing that. So is recovery. Recovery is no different. Finally, doubt. We're going to do a series in a few months about doubt. But my question is, how much faith does it take for you to turn your life over to Jesus? And my answer always is, as much as you got right now. You don't have some miraculous faith. You don't have to be better. You don't have to clean up your life. But that doubt you have about Jesus, that doubt you have, you can bring those doubts. And with just a little bit of faith, maybe just put one foot in the wheelbarrow. Well, that's good enough today. So as we turn for home, let me give you some action steps. Here are the action steps to depending on Jesus. All right? They may seem obvious, and I'm going to go through them quick, but these are steps you say, what do I do? Kyle, I don't want to be stuck in my pain. I want to be released from that. And that's a process. Sometimes God comes around and he just heals you from your pain and your addiction and all that stuff in your past. Bam, that's a miracle. Woo! Because they're miracles, they rarely happen. The rest of us have to work the steps. Let me tell you how. Number one, commit your life to God. You accept Jesus as your Savior. You turn your life over to him. John, who was a witness and friend of Jesus, said, to all who believed in Jesus and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. This may sound a little bit harsh. It's just truth. We're all God's creation. We're not all God's children. We stand outside the family of God when we choose to run our own life and we choose to deal with our own sin and we choose to direct our life. When you take off your manager hat and turn it over to Jesus, now you move from being outside God's family to being inside God's family. It doesn't make you better than everyone else in the world. It just puts you in a different place. And not because you're better and you're good and you're great. It's because of what Jesus did for you. So the first place you got to start is you got to commit your life to God. And maybe this is your day. Second, change your mind to God. Now, this is so true. When Paul says, don't copy the behaviors of the world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. You got to start there. Some of you, when I started talking about pain about 30 minutes ago, immediately you said, that's me. You didn't say it out loud. But you have to start with thinking, maybe there's something bigger. Maybe God, the creator of the universe, who loves me and proved it through Jesus, maybe it's true. Maybe if I start changing the way I think, it'll affect the way I feel, and then that'll start new behaviors. Changed thinking always leads to changed living. But we always work in reverse. We think, I'm just going to stop drinking. Well, you may get sobriety for a while. You won't get recovery. You got to figure out what's causing you to drink that much in the first place. What's going down deep down? What's going on? Change thinking always leads to change living. And you got to start, if you want change behavior, you got to start with change thinking. Next, commit with others to depend on God. Just surround yourself with people that are moving in the same direction as you want to move. And the best place to do that is in a real life group. There's on-ramp groups starting, there's men's group, there's women's groups, there's couples groups, there's singles groups. It doesn't matter. We have something for y'all. It really, Pastor Sarah and Pastor Megan have just done a great job organizing this season of groups. When James says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed, you're like, that's not a group for me. That may be an advanced group. But getting someplace where you can be honest with who you are and where you are in life, that would be great for you. And finally, celebrate the journey with God. Listen, if you've been a believer for a while, if you're new to church, if you're not yet a follower of Jesus, I hope this is your day. But just give me 60 seconds to talk to everybody else. If you're a follower of Jesus and you knew it when you walked in here, what are you celebrating in your journey with Jesus? When people encounter you, do they counter joy and celebration, or do they count negativity and judgment? God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. One rant and then I'm done. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're not actively involved in helping other people follow Jesus, you're missing out. You're like, I read my Bible every day. I study the Greek concordance. I look up words on Google. I'm in 3 different small groups. I show up here all the time. I volunteer at Real Life. Okay, great. But if you're not impacting and influencing people who are far from God, you're missing out. You're only 50% there. Because a growing believer is a sharing believer. So I'm just saying, invite. Brewster, come on. You know Jesus, invite someone to come. I just think Real Life's the best place to invite people in our communities. It's the easiest place to come. You're like, I don't like church. Perfect. We created it for you. I don't like organized religion. Yeah, okay, well, we're the most disorganized religion you're going to find. Show up. Let me give you 3 next steps. We always do next steps as a blue card. I'm way over time. I got to hurry. But that doesn't mean it's not important. As you think about your next step, and maybe you have a prayer request and there's something you can put on that, whether you're online, you can fill out a card, or you're in Brewster, you can fill out your card, or here in Chelan, you can fill out the card. Identify your roadblock to depending on Jesus. And it's okay, honest. You maybe share that with someone you trust. You can share it with me. Maybe you want to get a coffee or something like that. We can do that. I'd love to do that. What keeps you? What keeps you from going from belief that you think there's a God to completely depending on Jesus, who could come in and deal and start moving in your life in this pile of pain that you've been dragging around? You don't even have to do anything. You don't have to do anything about it. Just identify it. 2, get more information about Celebrate Recovery. The elders, the church board here at Real Life decided a few months ago at a retreat we were on that one of our big initiatives moving forward into the new year, we're going to relaunch Celebrate Recovery, a Christian 12-step group. Some of you are familiar with it. It used to be in our community, and despite good leadership, it just kind of faded. So we're going to hire a Celebrate Recovery director, and we're going to relaunch Celebrate Recovery. And that should be sometime after the first of the year. It may be in conjunction with when half the community center is done and we work perfect for what we need to do. It could start as early as early spring. We got a lot to do. If you're interested in being part of that, just put that on the blue card to come up. I'm keeping a list. We're putting a job description together. We're going to put that out, and we're going to hire a capable, experienced person that can run that. Because we lack the necessary resources for people who are struggling with hurts, habits, hang-ups. And that's the most important thing we're doing going into the new year. And finally, this is your day. This is your day. Step across the faith line. Today's your day. Middle of October, take off your manager hat, take off your apron. Your life's out of control, even though people can't tell. Maybe even no one knows. Inside, you're just churning. Maybe this is your day. You say, I choose today to step over the faith line, to move from belief about God to faith in God. And I'm doing that because Jesus Christ made a way and gave me access to God. Despite my past, despite my sin, despite my mistake, despite the stuff that keeps me from understanding and knowing God, despite all that, Jesus made a way. And we become acceptable to God because of Jesus, not because of our goodness. And today, just right where you're at, you can say, this is my day. I'm making a decision. I look forward to the process. I'm making a decision to depend on Jesus. I look for the process of growing to be more like him. I hope, Brewster, I hope you guys do that. I hope there's people there that make that decision today. Billy, we're going to turn the service back over to you. Thank you, Bill. Here in Chelan, let's pray. God, thank you that you meet us exactly where we're at. That religion says, clean your act up and we'll accept you. And Jesus, you say, we accept you. Come on, you'll get cleaned up later. Most of us are struggling with something. And we're trying to figure out all by ourselves. And God, I ask that you would meet us, first of all, with our deepest need of knowing Jesus. And that's the biggest satisfaction our soul needs. And God, then after that, I ask that we would trust you and continue to give you control of different parts of our lives as you reveal that. But God, we thank you that you love us and care about us no matter where we are in that process. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.